Here's the complete script, 923 words. The opportunity zone secret they buried. In 2018, the U.S. Treasury drew invisible lines around 8,764 pieces of American land and quietly built a rule so no one would ever have to prove what happened inside them. They called it an opportunity zone. On paper, it was simple: poor neighborhoods, investors, a tax break to bring the two together. But here's the part they never put in the press release. Nobody, not the IRS, not Treasury, not a single federal auditor was ever required to check if it worked. Let that sit for a second. Picture the paperwork. It's March of 2018. Governors in all 50 states have a deadline. Pick your state's most distressed census tracts, the ones that need it most, and submit them to Washington. Some tracts are exactly what you'd expect: boarded up blocks, empty lots, real poverty, real need. This is how the story is supposed to go, and for a while it does. The law itself had passed only months before, buried inside a much larger tax bill, signed into law in the final days of December 2017. Almost no one outside the finance world noticed the provision at the time. It was 3 pages in a document hundreds of pages long, and it handed governors an enormous, largely unsupervised power: the power to decide, with almost no outside review, which parts of their state would carry this designation for the next decade. Then the list gets strange. A tract in Louisiana turns out to be a storage facility. A tract in Portland, Oregon includes a Ritz-Carlton under construction. In Baltimore, roughly a mile of waterfront already owned by a billionaire, already zoned, already funded, already moving, gets folded in and suddenly qualifies for the exact same tax treatment meant for the block nobody could get a loan for. The rule allowed it. A tract just had to sit near poverty, not be poor itself. And once selected, there was no review board waiting on the other end. An investor didn't apply. An investor self-certified, checked a box on a single IRS form, and the money moved that same week. Here's what Treasury will tell you if you ask. The program worked as designed. Billions poured into distressed areas that private capital had ignored for decades: new grocery stores, new apartments, new tax revenue in places that had none. And some of that is true. Investment did land in places it hadn't landed in years. But watch the explanation fall apart the moment you ask a second question. Which places? How much stayed? How many jobs? How many years? How many of the people already living there before the money arrived? Treasury doesn't know. Not doesn't say, doesn't know, because nobody ever built the box to collect the answer. In 2020, the Government Accountability Office went looking for that answer and came back with nothing. No jobs data, no poverty reduction data, no tracking of whether a single resident of a single zone was still living there 5 years later. What they did find was a program designed so loose that self-certification meant the same government that couldn't confirm outcomes also couldn't confirm who got the money, how it was spent, or whether it left the zone within the year. Reporters filled the gap Treasury left empty. They traced luxury condo towers in already booming districts, a private ski resort, self-storage complexes, a stadium district in a city that already had a stadium, land near a football team's new headquarters, added to the map days before the deadline, after the right phone call to the right office. In more than one state, the tract that ultimately made the list wasn't even the poorest option on the table. It was the one a well-connected developer specifically asked for, by name, before the governor's office finalized anything. One economist who reviewed the filings put it plainly: the program had no mechanism, none, to stop money from flowing exactly where it would have flowed anyway, tax break or not. The break was never withheld from anyone. It was only ever added on top. And remember that tract in Baltimore, the one already funded before the ink dried. That's not an outlier. That's the pattern. The money finds the deal that was already going to happen and rides it in for free. So who benefited from a system built without a mirror? Follow it and the answer keeps landing in the same place. Developers who could already get financing, in neighborhoods already tipping toward money, represented by lawyers who helped write the very definitions the law would later use to include them. The residents the program was named for, the ones in the tract that never got a Ritz-Carlton, never got the waterfront, just watched the label attached to somewhere else nearby. They got the headline. Not the building. Billions in deferred and forgiven taxes have moved through these zones since 2018. No federal agency can tell you, tract by tract, where that money is now, who owns what it built, or whether the people it was named for ever saw a dollar of it. The zones are still active. The self-certifications are still filed, quietly, every quarter. Nobody sealed the records because nobody ever opened them. So ask yourself the question Treasury never had to answer. If a tax break for the poor can't say who it made rich, was that a mistake in the design, or was it the design? Save to home/jarvisadmin/oz secret script, txt, if you want it for the pipeline.